Arlene, what's up? Welcome back.
Hey, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We're talking about screens. Is there a screen epidemic in our world today as well? Yeah. What's that?
Isn't it the truth that before the pandemic, we were already like, okay, are our kids on our screens too much? And then the pandemic kind of gave us permission, like, hey, this is the way it is. This is how you're going to get by. This is how they're going to do school. This is how you can still work. So it's kind of like, okay.
All right.
That was several months ago. So that's why it's like, we got to really relook at this, because sure, if that's something you have to do for a month, then okay. But if this is something we're going to do for the next year, then it's like, man, we got to rethink this.
We do. I agree. Amen to that.
Yes.
To the nth degree. Like, seriously, like, have you seen, it's a new Netflix thing right now. It's the social
dilemma.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's so, I mean, not necessarily crazy about Netflix, right? But the social dilemma, that movie is amazing and really does need to be seen. And as a parent, for you to see it, and it's decent. You can show your kids. There's nothing really scary about it. Even your little kids, it'd be okay for them to watch it. So I had my 10-year-old watch it. And then I have 2 high schoolers, and we all watched it together. And I think that's a good thing to do.
I have not watched it yet. Do you want to know the funny reason why?
Yeah, tell me.
I haven't watched it because I don't watch TV, and it's not because I have anything against TV. It's just I have 4 boys. So like, right. Literally trying to carve out time for TV is just as hard as, actually carving out a date night with my wife and I is easier because that's like set in stone, right? But the TV thing, like we have it on, it's kind of in the background. The kids will watch their weirdo shows, which by the way, speaking of which, I'm going to digress and go into ADHD here for a second. But
you go there.
If you really like look at the shows, even like the shows you and I grew up on, like the Smurfs, right? Or Teen Titans Go and the SpongeBob. Like the funny thing is I looked at my kids and I was like, guys, let's think about this for 1 minute. Okay. All right. Everybody knows the Smurfs and SpongeBob. So we'll use those 2 examples right now, not to mention all the other crazy things that's on right now. But can you imagine, like, all right, marketing team, CB, like whatever, we're going to design a new show. Who's got ideas? And then there's that guy's like, all right, there's all these little blue people and they all are wearing white hats and they're like this big. There's one chick and then there's one old dude. And then there's one really crazy evil guy who just wants to eat them all. We can make a show out of that, right?
That's perfect.
It's awesome. And then let's make figurines that don't move. And then SpongeBob, the same thing. Like, all right, I got an idea. Let's make a sponge, but he's square and he wears pants and he talks. And let's give the 3 main characters the most annoying voice ever so that when the parents hear it in the background, their spines will rattle just when we make them laugh.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's gonna be great. These people do not have children that are right.
Sounds good, Ted. You're promoted. It's like, come on. But yeah, so the screen, I haven't seen it yet because, and that's why I go back to sharing why I haven't seen it. So I watch TV like sometimes right before I go to bed. If I have one of those days where I just need to shut off for a minute.
Yeah. And
like, no kidding around, I'll turn the TV on and in about 4.5 minutes, I'm out. And I started watching that and I watched the first 10 minutes and it had me like, so fired up. I was like, oh my gosh. It was the one part like in the very beginning where the kid is scrolling through TikTok and the mom is like, hey, can you set the table? And she's like this. And for those of you guys who are watching us on YouTube, she's like, yeah, I hear you, but I'm not listening. And I was like, I can't watch this right now. Yeah. What did you think of it?
I thought it was just brilliant because I felt like in one place you could get a really good understanding of it's changing the way you see your phone. So the basic premise, I think, for parents to get a hold of is this is not neutral. So I am holding my device.
Dog with glasses.
So I'm holding up my phone to the camera and it's got my husband and my dog and they're both, my husband has to wear readers now, reading glasses. And so he and the dog are wearing their glasses. So, see, I got you already. I got you already on the device. So this is how this works. And so to realize that the device is not neutral, but that the device has been designed by leading psychologists, marketers, brain scientists, tested over and over, A/B testings. Which one is more sticky? Which one is more this? And that all these features that you think, oh, isn't that cool? That it's like, wait a minute, like when you tag someone on a photo. All right, I've never thought of this. I thought like, oh, isn't that nice? Like here we are on Dad Edge and we'll tag each other on a photo. Isn't that nice? But then what that does is they've now has this whole new system for people to pick up their phone because now they're wondering, oh, what photo was I tagged in? And they pick up the phone. So how interesting that everything on purpose has been designed so you and your child will be like, let me pick up the phone and see. Because they've designed it that way. They designed it for it to take your attention. So how interesting that Tristan Harris, he's on the video a lot, and he's from the Center from Humane Tech, and he used to be a Google insider. And he was the one that was like, what are we doing? Is this ethical, what we are doing? So he just talked about how a bicycle is a tool. It remains just waiting for you to use it. And you go and you get your bicycle and it's a tool. But technology is not a tool. I'd always thought of it as a tool, but like your phone, your tablet, et cetera, that he talked about, these are not tools because tools just wait patiently for you to use them. But your technology is like your social media, YouTube, Netflix, whatever. It's like, watch the next one. Here we go. Pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. You know, your bicycle doesn't run around your children on its own saying, ride me, ride me, ride me. You know, you've had dinner now, ride me. You've woken up now, ride me. Like it doesn't do that. But how interesting, but tech, you know, that next thing queues up, the next video's there, the scrolling is endless on social media, on news. So once I think a parent is in the matrix, then they understand, oh, this isn't my fault. I'm not a bad parent. This isn't my kid's fault. My kid's not this awful person with no self-control. And you realize, okay, this is designed this way. So we're going to interrupt that design. We're going to be the ones to put the boundaries. We're going to be the ones to not put a device in a, 8-year-old's hand. We're going to do that. So it's, I think, an empowering message for parents to realize, wait a minute, why don't the tech insiders, why didn't Steve Jobs give his children an iPad when he told all of us to get one? Like, why didn't he do that? So once you realize, okay, the cocaine dealers are not taking their own substances, then you realize, okay, let me be smart enough to not give these substances to my kids too.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. So with you have 3 kids, right?
Yep.
Okay. Remind us their ages.
Yeah. So boy, girl. And I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. So one in 6th grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade.
Do they all have phones?
None of them have phones.
Not
even the 9th grader or the 11th grader. And we live in San Diego. We go to public school. We do not live under a rock. We do now because of coronavirus, but still, my kids go out and see people. So my kids have friends. They have hobbies. They play the piano. They ride bikes. They ski. They do all sorts of stuff. So they're normal, happy kids. And in fact, sometimes people will meet them and they'll be like, wow, your kids are different. They're good kids. They're neat kids. And I'm just thinking all they're noticing is that they looked them in the eye, that they were able to say, nice to meet you, have like a little conversation, and they're able to bear some responsibilities. You can go tell them to do something and they'll go do it. It's like, and that makes you all of a sudden very extraordinary. And I think, and obviously that's a sad commentary because that's something that any child could do pretty easily.
So wait a second. So all I have to do is actually be a human being, look at someone in the face.
Yes.
Be responsible. Okay. All right. So we're down to bare basics. I get it. Have they come to you and be like, Mom, I'm the only one in my class who doesn't have one of these. The 2nd graders have them.
So let this be just hope. So I really want, for those of you with little, smaller children, listen in on this. If you raise your kids and they kind of knew all the way growing up that, okay, we have tech in the house. We're not scared of it. My son has a YouTube channel. He plays a piano for it. He does 3D printing on the computer. They do all their schools on the computer. So there's iMacs in the house. There's one tablet in the house that's like my tablet, but they can use it. So they get it. And if they want to text a friend, they just grab my phone. It's kind of like the old home phone idea. They just grab my phone. So I'm on all these group chats. I don't care because I don't want them to have a device. It's fine. So we're not anti-tech, but we've always been like, you won't have your own. Like growing up, you're not going to get your own phone. You're not going to be the sixth grader with a phone. You're not going to be the middle schooler with a phone. You're not going to have social media because it's very unhealthy. So from the very beginning, from them being, like toddlers, it's like, oh, see that person with a phone? You're not going to have one of those. So there was no surprise of, oh, wow, I'm a freshman in high school. Does this mean my rite of passage is to have a phone? It's like, Noelle, our daughter, knew that's not going to happen. So one, set up that expectation and then really, believe in it. And then two, you just have to gauge it through your child's health instead of through how can I make them like everyone else? Because I know the feeling as a dad is, well, I want my kids to be happy. And in order for them to be happy, maybe it's they want to be in touch with their friends. They want to be able to do what everyone else does. So maybe that's that. But to realize, wait a minute, they also, when you give it to your son, then all of a sudden you have this gateway to porn. You give it to your daughter, and now she's got this gateway to YouTube and to social media where she's feeling like less than all the time. So it's like, who wants to sign up for that? So what's interesting now is even the high schoolers, when we'll ask them, and we asked this the other day, like if we let you get a phone, but you had to pay for it, would you do it? And both of them are conscious money enough that they would say like, yeah, for Ethan, the son, he was like, no, he's too frugal. He's like, yeah, I don't need one. My daughter actually did say yes. Like, I think I probably would, but she, the freshman, is also like, Mom, it's okay. Like, I don't mind not having social media. She never gives me grief about her not having a phone ever, but she'll say, if you let me, yeah, I probably would have one. So she realizes that social media is, and I'm going to do like a little documentary of my kids talking about this so people actually believe me when I'm saying this. But she'll say that, Mom, social media is fake. And I'd rather have one real friend next to me saying, hey, you're a good person. You're a good friend. Like, I think you're like a cool person. I'd rather have one real person who believes that about me than like hundreds of people that I don't even know who just like follow me. And obviously that following on social media. So for you men, and you're thinking about your daughters, all of a sudden that's how they gauge friendship. Like, I succeed as a friend because I kept 200 followers happy. Like I kept them engaged. They respond to my posts. Like, that's what makes friendship. And that, how do they respond? So I have to put stuff out there that makes me popular or that makes me witty or interesting or pretty. And it's like, these are not even the characteristics you want. And that's not friendship. That's fandom. Right? It's not friendship. And that's why girls especially are so unhealthy today with the spikes in depression and suicide and self-harm, with a very large jump for kids 10 to 14 of girls. And I think instead of having friends, they're looking for fans, and that doesn't satisfy at all. And the phone is really the agent that does that. So my plea is really delay that personal device, delay that social media, and let your kids play in real life with real people. And they'll be so much more healthy and they will survive. They'll be just fine. They can find workarounds. My son has a Google Voice number. It's free, and he texts his friends and does group chats that way for school. And that's just on the computer. And then, my daughter has the same. She hasn't utilized that as much. She uses my phone more often, but that's fine. There are workarounds.
I love that your kids they're like, yeah, I really don't need it. I would actually rather have a real person in my life versus like someone, click like, totally. Oh, look at that. I got 120 likes. Yeah. That is so true. And good on you for that. Good on you for having that discipline. And
let me tell you, that is a lot of my husband. So I would be more soft. We're similar, but he is more like, no way.
Yeah.
So he brings that strong dad edge of, not on my watch. That's not even going to happen to my children.
Good for you. Good for you guys. I'll share this story with you, and it sounds like, you're saying one thing and doing another. So my oldest does have a phone. He's 14. He'll be 15. Mm-hmm. And we put him through like a ton of different disciplinary tests, like disciplinary. It makes it sound like it was harsh, but it was like, he was like, I really want a phone. And I will say this about his personality, because I think you have to really assess the personalities and the discipline and all that other stuff with each kid. And he's the oldest of 4 brothers. So I told him, I was like, listen, if you can prove to us that you can make more grown-up decisions, okay, extra responsibility, paying for your phone, that kind of thing, then, we'll talk about it. And he's like, well, what does that look like? And we gave him the parameters. We're like, well, part of it is, here's a list. I'm going to be brief with the list because there was a laundry list. I was like, you get up in the morning.
Right.
You set your own alarm. You're packing your own lunch. I mean, just things like that. You're doing your own laundry. You're cleaning your room without us having to ask. You're cleaning your bathroom without us having to ask. Like, you're doing these things. And that's just, we gave him a list of like 30 things. Like, these are the things that a responsible young adult starts to do. And for like a good year and a half, he was just firing, right? And we're like, okay. I think he was 13 when we gave him his phone. And so we installed, and we told him this, we're installing Bark on your phone. If you're familiar with that app.
It's great.
So we installed Bark. I'm like, listen, I'm just letting you know, this is an app that runs in the background of your phone. So if there's cursing, if there's cyberbullying, if you're trying to look at porn, all these other things, I will get a ding, and it will screenshot exactly what it is that you're saying or what it is you're searching. And no social media. That's the other thing. You do not have Facebook, Instagram, or anything like that. And I have been very, very pleasantly surprised at his own discipline around it. Yep. So there are a certain amount of hours. Obviously, he can't have it in school. I was like, when you're done with your homework, you can have it for this amount of time. And if you want to do YouTube, because he's learned to play guitar. Yep. So he'll go onto YouTube. He's got a certain amount of time that he's only allowed to watch YouTube, and then that app just completely shuts off. I think it's only 1 or 2 hours a day that he's allowed to watch YouTube, and I track it because he uses my account. And I was like, I can see every bit of history that you're watching. So we need to make sure that you're watching the videos that you say you are. And the other thing too is my 12-year-old. So same thing. I was like, look, if you can do these things, he started doing them. And I was like, okay, well, you can buy a phone. He had a phone for 6 months. And last month, as we released this show, we took it away. Yeah. He started doing exactly what I saw in that Social Dilemma, where he would get on TikTok. And even though we had a screen time limit, he would max out the screen time limit and then ask for more. And it got up to the point where we warned him over and over, not a ton of times, but I'm like, listen, if you can't get disciplined around this, and I can understand why you can't, because this whole system is set up for you to fail. However, if you can be mentally resilient, emotionally strong, and have discipline around it, we will allow you to keep the phone. If you can't, it's not in the cards for you to have right now. And there was one day he woke up late. He got on his phone. He was supposed to be getting ready for his football game. He was supposed to be getting in the shower, getting his pads on, all that. I went downstairs and he had been on TikTok for an hour. Oh. And I was like, buddy, sorry. No more phone. Done with the phone. And he was so upset. And then what I noticed though, after 30 days, totally new kid.
My goodness.
Totally different kid. And I'm sitting here thinking I don't know if he's getting that back. Yeah. I think I will get him a phone, but I'm going to get him a text only phone. Like an old school, you can either make a phone call or you can send somebody a text. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if go ahead. Okay.
Well, I was going to say that's so perfect, that example of your family, because it shows every kid is different. Yeah. So there are going to be some kids that can handle it and it's going to work for them. And you're like, okay, this is okay. I haven't seen any disruption in the way they interact with the family or in the way they are with their friends. They're still as responsible. This is working. This is cool. Yeah. And then there's going to be others where it's this is just way too much for this child to handle. So it is true. And then you can talk to your kids about it. They'll say, well, that's not fair because he turned this certain age and he got one and I turned this certain age and I didn't. And then it's, well, you know what? I think one lesson is life isn't fair. Life doesn't go through and say, oh, you have this. Well, you should have this too, and you might go through as adults, things that aren't quite fair in your life, but that's okay that you make the most of it. And that there are seasons for certain things. And that right now, mom and dad, we're just concerned about the development of your brain. And this isn't the season for TikTok. Later, you can have this, but not now. So kind of get over that. There's no argument is this fair? You could say, well, is it fair that I have to pay all your bills? Is it fair that I have to work hard to get a bed under your body? You could play that all you like. And then I think it's good how you did it with your oldest son of this is what it's used for, because if you use it for specific purposes, I think that's when it can work really well. Like, I'm going to use this phone to text my parents to let them know where I am. I'm going to use this phone to watch this video so I can learn how to play the guitar. When it has a specific purpose, it's like, this thing is magic. Like, how amazing that we can do that. But of course, the specific purpose, because it's not like a Walkman of yesteryear where that's all it can do. That was the beauty of the old school stuff, is there was only one thing it could do. It could play records, could play a VHS tape, could play a DVD. Like, that's all it does. So that way you don't get sucked into it for hours and hours and hours. So if you can teach your kids to kind of treat their devices like that, like, I'm just here to do this, and then I put it back down. And there's a difference between creating something and consuming something. So if your kids are using their devices, but they're creating stuff, even creating videos, creating things, that's useful. But if they're just laying back and they're just consuming, then you have to be like, okay, this is more of a digital candy than digital vegetable, which is another way to look at it. Are you having a digital vegetable? That's like class lectures, math, learning another language, Skyping grandma. That's not the stuff your kids are doing at 2:00 in the morning or first thing when they wake up. Oh, please give me my phone so I can Skype grandma. Nobody's doing that. So you can tell pretty easily what's a digital vegetable and what's a digital candy. And we talk more about that in Screen Kids in the book.
Unless you're Happy Gilmore, and then you have fond relationship with your grandma. I need to text grandma. But I like digital vegetable versus digital candy. Oh, that is very, very powerful. Paints a really good picture. Your new book, tell us about this.
Yeah, we have a new book, Dr. Gary Chapman, who you may know from 5 Love Languages, and I have a new book called Screen Kids, and it's 5 skills every child needs in a tech-driven world, and it's a wonderful follow-up book to the Social Dilemma. Let's say you watch the Social Dilemma and you're like, oh my goodness, now I'm in the matrix. I am so scared. Then you pick up Screen Kids and you kind of know. So what it is, it's readable research. So it's something very easy to understand, kind of lets you know what's at stake, what's going on in your kid's brain, what does screen time really do? And then what are the missing components? Because our kids are on screen so much, then they're missing these A+ skills that we talk about. Things like affection, anger management, attention, appreciation. So that's going to help you realize what needs to go into the heart of my child, not TikTok, not YouTube, but what needs to go in the heart of my child. And then really, there's a chapter for the single parent. There's all sorts of, so it's a resource for you to say, I don't know what to do with my screens. I need help. Please help me. And this is a very easy way to find it.
We just had Gary Chapman on. That guy is like, awesome. I feel like it's kind of like having your morning coffee as the sun coming up. He's just very like, he's like the
beautiful picture of it.
And I don't mean the caffeine part. I'm like, wow, like, suddenly I feel very comforted. Like, he's just the most easygoing, easiest guy to talk to. Like, I mean,
it's so true.
Yeah. He's just a good dude.
He's awesome. Yeah.
Is your book meant for a parent to read with kids, or for parents only, or for kids only? Like, how should we best use the book?
Yes. I think the primary person is the parent. It's an adult. So it's not necessarily a book you hand to your children. It's a book that you read as an adult about your children. And a grandparent could read this book. Maybe you have a granddad or a grandma that is, watching your kids a lot. This is a good read for them to understand. And we also have like a mini companion book for grandparents called Grandparenting Screen Kids, so that the grandparents who are now like, what in the world do we do with the tablet and what do we do with this thing? That it's a resource for grandparents too, because we know a lot of grandparents have to watch their kids and they don't know what to do with it. So it is for adults. And, you certainly could, I think, with even your little kids, you could read a paragraph and think, oh, my child needs to know that. And then you could read it. Look at this, what it does to your brain. You can do that. And I think that's a great way to use it.
Do you have a copy of your books in front of you there?
I do.
Let's hold them up. Let's hold them up for you guys.
So we have Screen Kids for those of you who are watching this and you've got the video. So I'm surrounding myself with books. So we have Screen Kids and we've got grandparenting Screen Kids.
It's upside down.
Yeah.
It's upside down.
That's so sad. Ta-da!
That's okay. People are now like, really, oh, there it is.
You feel kind of upside down in the screen world. So, so we're going to help you feel more right side up.
I like it. So yeah, for those of you guys who have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's the Good Dad Project. You'll see our Spartan logo. You can actually watch this particular interview on our YouTube channel. Let's go over what's your most favorite skill set in the book out of the 5?
The one that comes to mind is appreciation. And the appreciation is just the idea of having a child who, instead of saying, I want more, everyone else has one of these, that a child that's like, I can wait for that. And thank you so much. I have so much more than what most people have. I mean, can you imagine this lovely child who thinks this way? And the screen time, what it does is it fights against this idea of waiting, because when you have 1,000 channels, 1,000 things to choose to watch, when you can download an app and it takes a second to download and then it's at your fingertips, when you have Netflix and it queues up automatically, just the child gets really used to, hey, 1, I am entertained all the time. And 2, if it doesn't come fast, I'm going to complain. And so that kind of child then has a hard time being bored, serving other people, I have to serve someone else. And so I think that skill set of appreciation of a child who is content, who is grateful for what they have, who wants to give back into their community, who will be the one to say to a frustrated teacher, it was a hard day today, but you did a really good job with the lesson. Can you imagine that child? I think that skill is a bedrock skill that so many other virtues will follow. That virtue of gratitude, of being grateful. It'll frame how you are in a marriage. It'll frame how you are as an employee, as a citizen of America, all those things. So gratitude. And I think screen time really does rob kids of that, because they're just sitting on the couch being like, help to set dinner. Why would I set dinner? I'm doing my video game. Like, I'm having fun. And so their whole life all of a sudden is about me, 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 me. And even screen time, instead of, I feel like if a family watches a movie together, that's a digital vegetable, because you've just made a memory together. You've just talked about how hard it is to get your 4 sons right in one room. So that's good. But when kids watch individually, and that's how it is that dad's watching what he wants, mom's watching what she wants, kid 1 is watching one thing, kid 2 is watching another. So we're entitled. It's like we want everything individualized for our personal pleasure, adults and kids. And it makes us ungrateful, because when things don't go our way, we don't like it. And that's that sense of indulgence is very unhealthy for kids. And instead, I think a sense of appreciation, gratitude, that's going to help them in life so much.
I like that. And also, like, there's this thing about instant gratification, right? It's like, there it is, right? Our family was talking about the difference between, because I found a box of old pictures of me growing up, and my kids were just hysterically laughing at like how fat I was growing up and all that. But we were talking about TV, right? And I was like, you guys have no idea. Like this whole, like right now, our family's into Cobra Kai. We love Cobra Kai. Yeah. And I love Cobra Kai because I'm like, oh my gosh, this was like, right. I was in 5th grade or 4th grade when this movie came out. Yeah. Like this is like part of my childhood, right? And my kids are like, let's watch another episode. Let's watch another episode. And I'm like, you guys are so funny. I was like, do you know, when I was your age, and I sound like my grandfather, walking uphill both ways to school with no shoes on. No, but I was like, my favorite shows were Knight Rider and Dukes of Hazzard. And it came on every Thursday. And every episode ended with like, Michael Knight and Kit, like they're jumping over something. You're like, oh my gosh, are they going to make it?
It's so true.
And then you're like, I have to wait till next Thursday. Right. And not only that, but what if I'm not here? Right.
Yes.
I can't rewatch it.
You could miss it altogether. Yeah. And you'd only have your friends to retell the story.
Yeah. What happened to Bo and Luke? They were chased by the 77th time by Roscoe, and he didn't crash this time. Like, did he actually catch him? But yeah, it's like in this age, like it's like instant gratification. Whatever it is that I want or want to view or do, it's right there.
It's right there.
Real quick, talk to us about, and I'm sure I think it was actually you that came on and talked about, there was a study done and it was like you playing a video game of shooting baskets, right? And like every time like you make a basket, like balloons go off and there's like a ding, and like that actually what they found in the brain was actually more gratifying than kids actually going outside and shooting a hoop. And they make it like, well, where's all the balloons? Yeah. Where's the music, right? And it became more gratifying to them to watch something that they were doing versus actually doing it.
Isn't that crazy? And how interesting, because on YouTube, we watch other people do stuff that we're interested in, right? That's one aspect of it. We might watch a skateboarder instead of like going out and doing it ourselves and getting really good at it or whatever. But yes, this idea of when they're on a video game, they're shooting hoops and then they have this dopamine. It's like, and it's been designed this way, like tested to make sure like, oh, good, the brain is lighting up in the right places. Hey, we must be designing this game right. So to realize that, okay, that dopamine is a good hormone, but it can be overdone. So dopamine in the brain is like riding a roller coaster. It's like, wow, that was so fun. But if you get on a roller coaster again and again and again, that's not good for your body. You're going to feel sick. So the kids are getting all this dopamine, and it's just too much. It's flooding the brain. And that's why you think, okay, if my child is being amused all day, why aren't they happier? Like, why isn't this child a happier child if I'm giving them, quote unquote, what they want? So it's understanding that this dopamine in small doses is really lovely. A roller coaster once in a while, let's go. But roller coasters all day long, not good. And then the real life can't compete with it. So if in my game, if I get rewarded, woo, you have a badge, you have, it's this whole, they also leverage the power of goals. People were really goal oriented, especially boys, super goal oriented. So it's like, oh, I got to the next level. Look at what I got. I got these points. I got this. I have status. I have more than my friend. All that's happening. So the real world, how can that compete? You shoot a basket. It just goes whoosh. It's like nothing happened. And so they realize, oh, the screen world, video games is way more exciting than the real world where I have to do homework and read and do chores and eat vegetables. There's no like little running tally throughout the day. Oh, 200 points. Oh, 400 points, 800 points. Oh, pot of gold because you did your homework. It doesn't exist. And so kids are learning this way of life that isn't real, that their brain is being rewarded for stuff online, but the brain doesn't have that same reward when they do the right stuff in real life. But we all know that you might be a video game, like you might be awesome at that. But if you don't know how to balance your money, if you don't know how to interview, how to hold down a job, be responsible, that video game's only going to take you so far. But yeah, that is something that's dangerous for the brain because that dopamine, after a while, then you need more of it to get that same high. So all of a sudden your kid's gaming more, or they lead a more intense game, or they're going to, wake up in the middle of the night and start gaming, all those things because they need more of it to feel that same pleasure. So we've got to be really careful and just think of those chemicals in the brain. The last thing I want to say about the brain that's really scary and interesting is when your child is playing a video game, like something where they're, running away from somebody, a Fortnite or whatever. And so there's that adrenaline that's going. So their body is like fight or flight, like, man, we got to get out of here. We got to go. So the body, the blood actually flows and it goes to the organs to protect your organs. It protects vital things like breathing. And then it drains out of the front part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is like the executive center of your kid's brain that says, you've been sitting here for 2 hours. You really should go do some homework. Or, your mom, I think that's her voice. She's calling you right now. That part of the brain, no blood. Totally dark, all the survival parts, that's where the blood is flowing. And so to realize that, wait a minute, if this happens continually, that prefrontal cortex is pretty weak. That decision-making center that says, I need to have self-control. I'm very angry now and I need to learn how to manage my anger. That portion is dark, where it's just survival, And so a lot of kids, when you look at them and you think, man, what are they thinking? It's like they're not thinking because they haven't had practice for that executive center in their brain to get lots of blood and nutrients, but instead it's all going somewhere else. And that, I think, if you see that when your child is gaming, you visualize that helps you to say, okay, game over, we're done. We're going to go do something else now.
Oh my gosh, Arlene. So I feel like you're Morpheus and I'm Neo, and you just
I know it's like, don't take the pill. You don't
right.
take the pill. It's easier not to know.
Right. I just took the pill, and I feel like the way you just described that, I got to give you some kudos. That was so clear. Cause like, you know, you sit there and you watch your kid and you're like, what is going on with you? Like, for crying out loud, man.
Yeah.
Like, don't you hear my voice? Like, that it's time to eat dinner, or like, why are we still watching this or doing this or whatever? But that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you can see that happening now.
Yeah.
And this part of the brain, as I say this, you know, the front part of your brain, the front prefrontal cortex, it's basically shut down, right? And rightfully so. If your brain is in fight or flight, it's trying to quote unquote keep you alive.
Totally. While your son or daughter's on the couch. But yeah, got to keep you alive.
Got to keep you alive. Which, by the way, SpongeBob and, you know, Smurfs and like, I don't know what Fortnite, like what they did there was like, let's make these people the most unrealistic as possible and give them weapons that they can only make in their garage and they'll blow up the world. Like, it's really weird. So, and we're going to parachute them in on hand gliders to every mission. We actually don't have Fortnite. We had Fortnite for like a minute.
Yeah.
And then we didn't. So,
yep.
So as we wrap up here a little bit, I want to get to one more point. You spoke about gratitude and appreciation. Talk to me about the second tip out of the 5 in the book that is most meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm. I want to say it is the device location. All right. So just think about where are the devices, because sometimes we make it so complicated, but if we just were to change, where is this device? How do we use them? So for instance, mealtime, where are the devices? So if at mealtime you've got devices, your kid's on a device, you're on a device, you're always checking your phone, then you're realizing, okay, we are not having the best mealtime that we could. So it's this idea of, you know, you've heard the saying, change your location, change your life. So if you change the location of your devices, it's a very easy way to change your life. So a lot of times we use our devices, our kids use our devices because they're so accessible. They're just right there. They're like 3 inches away. So they're going to grab it. But all of a sudden, what if you had to like put away the game console every time and like zip it up in a box and like stick it on a top shelf? Then all of a sudden there's a little bit of effort. There's a little bit of a rub to get to play those video games. What if the phones, you know, they're not overnight, even with your teenagers, even with your senior in high school? Can you imagine? But that child, don't worry, they're going to go to college, they're going to make these decisions. But while they're under your roof, that you say, you know what? I'm going to start collecting your phone at 11 o'clock at night. You can get it in the morning because I want you to get a good night's sleep. And it's really as simple as that. And it truly, if you just do it for that reason, that's a good enough reason to do it. So you've changed the location of the device. So we would recommend no screens in the bedroom for kids, you know, like a personal tablet, a phone, et cetera, because they're just going to go in their bedroom and watch their screen. But instead that those screens would be in the living room. They would be in more central places. And then overnight they would be guarded. So just kind of track your devices and think to yourself, if we could delay the devices to our kids, right? So I'm living proof that when your kid is in high school and they say, I'm the only one, you can say, no, there's some poor kids in California. They don't have them either, you know? So delay those devices because I am with you. If you're going to give a device to a child, then do what you did, you know, install Bark, have the conversation. You've got to prove yourself responsible before having this. If we see trouble, we're going to take it away. So that's perfect, ideal. But my husband and I were like, we don't want to go through all that. So we just took it we just took out we just took it out. Like that's not even on the board. We just are not going to give you a phone. So there's a few ways, you know, you could do that. But the whole idea, think of those devices, delay them as long as you can. And then when they're there, think of the location of them and really take charge and try to put barriers in between that device and your child, whether it's video games, YouTube, whatever, that it's not so easy for them. And the same for us. You know, so it's maybe sleeping with your phone in another room, unless you're an emergency worker, for adults too, things like that. So think about it, maybe a digital Sabbath where on a certain day of the week, and maybe you do this once a month just as a check, that you say, hey, you know what, we're going to go dark on Sunday. And we're just going to use the phone for these purposes to make sure if there's an emergency. But otherwise, none of us are going to go on devices on Sunday, and we're just going to have to figure it out. Most likely, you guys are going to be on the lake. You guys are going to be like hiking. You're going to do some fun, and that's going to be really good for the family. So a digital Sabbath, doing that once in a while as a test. Because if your kids freak out and they can't go a day without Wi-Fi, then you know, like, okay, we've got kind of like a problem brewing.
Yeah, that's like the test right there, right? How do they react to 24 hours of no screens if they're freaking out?
Totally.
Might be a telltale sign. Yeah, we try to go screen free on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, it's kind of weird, right? When you think about it, it's almost like fasting for 24 hours. Like, I don't know if I can go 24 hours without food.
It's true.
And then you start to feel the effects of the health behind it, right? So I do a 24-hour fast once a week, and there's a part of me that despises it. But then, 80% of me actually really likes it because I feel like it's a break. It's a systematic break from food. And I feel better. I feel clearer. I feel more productive. And actually, as we record this podcast, I always fast on Mondays, Sunday night and Monday night. The same thing with our devices. If fasting seems like unheard of, you're like, wow, that sounds really uncomfortable. But you also start, the cool thing about fasting on Monday, food wise, is that I have like all capacity. I am like so dialed in to set my week up and get so many things done because I don't have to think about food. Yeah. And that's the same thing about, like, we try to do screen-free Sundays. We're not always successful with it, but when we're diligent about it, like, it is such a relief. Yeah. And it's like, oh wow, I see things differently. I hear things differently. I enjoy things differently. And there isn't that stress. And when I say screen free, I mean, it's not even on us, because if the one thing, and I don't know if this is in your book or not, but the one thing that I've noticed, even if the phone is in your pocket and it's on vibrate only and it vibrates and you're in the middle of a conversation, it will steal your attention.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I wonder who that is.
I wonder what that was.
Yeah. Wait, do I need something wrong? Do I need to see something? So if you guys have never tried it, try to do exactly what Arlene said, which is a sabbatical. It feels really, really good, actually. So, well, as we wrap up here, I want to make sure all the men can find your book and all your resources, all the amazing things that you are doing. So share those, please. Yeah.
Take a look at screenkidsbook.com, and you'll be able to see the book, and then you'll be able to, there's all sorts of freebies there of like common courtesies that every kid should be able to know, table talk questions, kind of start the conversation rolling at dinner time. If you're like, oh my word, what do we talk about? Because we're not looking at screens or it's not on in the background. So there's all sorts of freebies there. So screenkidsbook.com.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, we're going to not only have that particular landing page for you in the show notes, but we're also going to have all of Arlene's, you're on social media, right?
I am.
Okay. I was going to say it before. I was like,
I know. I tell you what, media. After the social dilemma, I had to rethink that, but I am there. So Instagram, Arlene Pellicane, and Facebook, Arlene Pellicane author.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. So guys, not to worry, go to gooddadproject.com/296 for this show. Again, gooddadproject.com/296 for this show. We'll have all of Arlene's links, as well as a link for her book, as well as today's sponsor, which is Bark, of course. If your kids are going to have any type of device that accesses the internet or texting or emailing or social media, at least install Bark. And as you guys know, you heard it in the mid-roll. It's only $8.10 with our discount code. I would pay $100 a month for that service. I'm just saying it's way underpriced for what you get. So you get to make sure that your kids are at least safe. Arlene, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And seriously, thank you for positively disrupting this generation of fathers and kids. You're doing amazing work.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate that.
You bet.